So we've got a DAF LF Euro 6 to have a look at today. Air supply system malfunction on the dash, so we'll jump in, confirm the customer's concern, plug in gel test and see what's going on. Right, let's make sure this is doing what it's doing. Let's just start it up, I think. Right, air supply system malfunction. So I'll just use the menu control switch here. We'll go into the truck. We'll have a look at the air supply. So you can see gauge 1 is at 10 bar, but gauge 2 is at 0. And that's why we've got a air supply controller system malfunction. So we'll get gel test from Eclipse Diagnostics plugged in now and see what's going on. Right, we've got powers, grounds and CAN. Brilliant. So we'll do auto VIN identification. We're looking for APU, not SAC, like we would do on a CF or an XF. And because it's not got its own ECU, we're just looking for VIC. Why are we looking for VIC? Because it's the only system that interfaces with our air gauges on gauge 1 and gauge 2. So we're in Vehicle Intelligence Center now. We can go to fault code reading, but there won't be any faults in here to do with the air supply system. So we'll just go to measurements, measurement selection. And if we just put in pressure, we can just look at pressure. You'll see air pressure 1, air pressure 2. One's got 10 bar, one's got 0 bar. So this to me confirms the customer's concern. And most probably, if we go to diagrams, we'll find the wiring for air pressure circuit 2. So we're looking for pressure sensor, aren't we? So we'll put pressure sensor, there we go. Pressure sensor circuits 1 and 2 service brake. We'll have a look at this diagram now. I'll just zoom in over here. So this is our Vehicle Intelligence Center ECU here. We've got 4 wires coming out of it. Pins 21, 16, 31 and 11. And then over here we've got our APU air pressure sensor circuits 1 and 2. We'll just have a quick look at this. So what have we got on here? Well, we've got 2, 3, 6 wires going into this pressure sensor and 4 wires go into the ECU. Why is that? Because it shares a power and ground. So we'll have a look at the wiring on this on the truck now, but this wiring diagram isn't great, is it really? So what we'll do is we'll use gel test's Info Plus wiring diagram, and we can see the bulkhead connector and see what wires go where, and we can test it between the bulkhead and the valve or the air pressure unit. So we'll go into Info Plus wiring diagram now. So we want pressure sensor again, don't we? Let's put pressure in here. Pressure sensor circuits 1 and 2. There we go. Let's just zoom in over here. So this is our pressure sensor here. And as you can see, we've got a connector on the frame. That's what F stands for. And then we've got a connector further up here, which is our bulkhead. So we'll go and open the grill now and have a look at our bulkhead before we go any further. And then we can follow the wiring down to our pressure sensor on the air pressure unit. Let's hope these come off. These look fun, don't they? So we'll check the wiring from here. Well, this is our APU. This is our multi-circuit protection valve here. Looks like somebody's thrown 400 quid at a multi-circuit protection valve. This is our pressure sensor that I was on about. This obviously hasn't fixed the fault, has it? So what we'll do is we can test our wiring from this plug to the front for circuit 2, and we'll go from there. So we want plug 23D, pins 1, 2, 3 and 4. Well, this is 23D here. I'll just turn the ignition off and we can get this plug out. Right. This plug's always a nightmare. So we've got our plug here, 23D. We've got to have a look at some wiring on this now. So we've got our powers and ground wires to check and our signal wires to check. I don't think there's an issue with the powers and grounds, because why would sensor 1 be working and not sensor 2? So I actually think it's a signal issue from here to the APU, but we'll check the wiring for signal sensor 1 and signal sensor 2, mainly because I can't work out on the wiring which one does which. But that's pins 2 and 5, if I remember rightly. We'll have a look at the diagram before I do this, and I'll explain as we go along. But yeah, we'll test the wiring from here now to the APU and load it up. So we want pins 3 and 4. They are our sensor wires. So that's 1, 2, 3 and 4. 3 and 4 are the only 2 wires we care about today. So we'll be testing these wires here, this one and this one, down to the APU. Right. So we want pins 2 and 5 here. Right, they're in there. Let's go back to the front. So we've got our gel test multimeter here. We'll set this to ohms. We'll test this to beep now. We'll check this to zeros. Zero. And we've got 2 wires from the APU here. One's on pin 2, one's on pin 5. So we'll start with our red wire here, and we'll test that to our plug here at 23D, pins 3 or pins 4. Right, so we've got continuity, and we've got 2.5 ohms on pin 4. So we'll set this to our black wire. Right, what have we got on the other pin? 0.7, 0.8 of an ohm. Well, pin 4 has got 2.5 ohms on it. That's not good, is it? So now we know we've got an issue on this wire here on pin 5. The question is it from this plug here to this plug here, which is our frame connector, or is it from this frame connector here all the way down to the front? So we'll just test here from this plug to this plug for resistance on that pin 5 here, pin 6 there, I think the wiring diagram said it was. And we'll see if we've got massive amounts of resistance there, and that will determine then whether it's this harness or the chassis harness. So our multimeter's set up now. We're in pin 5 still here with one end of the multimeter. We'll go into pin 6 in this plug because that's where that wire goes to, and we can check the resistance measurement on there on the multimeter to see if it's low. So we'll go to pin 6. 0.4 of an ohm. I'd say that's pretty good for no resistance in that wire. So I'd say the other 2 ohms of resistance that we've got, or whatever the figure was, is from this plug here to the front of the truck. So we'll have to replace the wire now from pin 6 here to pin 4 at the front. So I've pulled my harness into here now. We'll just have pin 4 out of here. We'll bare the end, well, I'll cut this down a bit in a minute, but we'll bare the end back on here. We'll put a new pin on. We'll slap that on there, get rid of this, and job should be a good one. So that's our pin 4 changed into my harness instead of the DAF sensor wire now. We'll sort all this out with some cable ties. So now we've got our new wire from the APU up to plug 23D here. We'll put the cover on, jump in the cab, and see if we've got it right. So the front's all back together now. We'll get the grille down, go and jump in the cab, see if we've managed to fix that. Right. Ignition's on. Nothing there. Let's use our menu control switch. Oh, let's start it up. Let's dump the air. Oh, looks good to me. Looks good to me. Hope this one wasn't too confusing. You saw me zero the multimeter first. That just confirms that there's no resistance in the leads or the multimeter itself. So any readings I get from it are purely from the circuit that we're testing. I compared pressure sensor 1 and pressure sensor 2. Circuit 1 or sensor 1 gave us a low resistance reading, and we know that circuit actually works. But sensor 2 showed a higher resistance, and that was the one that wasn't working. Next, I ruled out the short harness from the air processing unit to the chassis plug. That's why I ended up changing the signal wire in the chassis loom, and that's how I fixed the fault. Now, resistance tests can be a bit misleading, and measuring the resistance of a wire without any load on can give you a false sense of what's going on. To be honest, I should have powered that wire up and loaded it up with a bulb to check it properly, but this was Saturday morning and I wanted to go home. But anyway, make sure you hit that like button if you thought this was a good video. Make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss my next upload, and I'll see you next time.